There was a time when I seemed to spend quite a lot of time bumping into Sir Anthony Seldon in where is it now? Wellington College, Wellington School, and Seldon. Every time he saw me, he used to say to me, "Are you a member of the staff?" And I had to point out again and again that I wasn't, and I found it faintly entertaining. He seemed distracted a lot of the time, but he also gave some very inspiring speeches to the students in the school, particularly at the beginning of the school year. And he's a very interesting educationalist with some very good positive views. Uh, I think he's also a little bit scatty, and he's produced a lot of books about uh, recent prime ministers, Blair, Cameron, Theresa May. In fact, I looked up the book on Theresa May a few minutes ago. I mean, it was as bad as I thought it was, and I don't think I think a lot of it was written by somebody else. I think he's now got into the process of delegating book writing, um, but he's carved out this significant role, this significant niche, through his detailed and often critical biographies of British prime ministers and his in-depth analysis, sort of, which blends personal insights with broader political observation and context. And Seldon's approach is particularly notable for his willingness to engage critically with the character and motivations of his subjects, often offering sharp critiques of their leadership style and decision making ability. Uh, and this comes through even in books which I don't think are entirely his own. But in his recent book on Liz Truss, which hasn't come out yet, I must say I'm itching to get my fingers on it, Seldon makes a striking comparison in interviews today between her and Boris Johnson. And despite Truss's brief tenure of just 49 days, Seldon argues that she was a better Prime Minister than Johnson, albeit within a framework of bad and very bad leaders. And his critique of Johnson is particularly scathing, painting him as a leader driven by personal pleasure, hedonism, and lacking any coherent vision for the country. I think he's right about that, but I think Liz Truss is still the worse Prime Minister, and she is still the lesser of the two. I think Boris had potential, which was wasted, which was scattered, rather like uh, the seed on the sofa. But um, his, according to Seldon, Johnson's tenure was marked by a lack of seriousness, a disregard for the responsibilities of the office, and an enduring damage to the British state, both in terms of public service and international credibility. But I think he was the one who unleashed Liz Truss onto the international stage as Foreign Secretary, and so he must take responsibility for Liz Truss as well. The greatest damage that Liz Truss did was in front of Lavrov as Foreign Secretary, rather than the significant damage that she did for people with mortgages or for pensioners when she was Prime Minister. But some of that damage can be repaired and should have been repaired by now. It hasn't. Uh, and that is distressing for both pensioners and mortgage payers. Uh, but the economy has sort of righted itself a little bit um, under the tenure of Rishi Sunak, and will do so more, I hope, under Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer. But the real damage, I think, was done. Um, I agree that the real damage was done by Boris Johnson or under Boris Johnson, but by Liz Truss. The real damage was the poking of Lavrov by Liz Truss and that image of inadequacy. What makes Seldon's critique particularly powerful is his use of historical comparison. He juxtaposes Truss's admiration for Margaret Thatcher with her failure to understand Thatcher's careful and gradual approach to policy implementation. And this comparison, or this contrast, underscores Truss's political immaturity and her misreading of the lessons of Conservative governance. Seldon's work, particularly in Truss at 10, How Not to be a Prime Minister, is not just a biography but a cautionary tale. It serves as a textbook example of what can go wrong when leaders lack the necessary blend of vision, humility and practical wisdom, and his critique of Johnson and Truss is grounded not just in their personal failings but in the broader consequences of their leadership for the country. Because if somebody is bad, somebody who is more bad or not as bad is still a disaster. In that, I agree entirely with Anthony Seldon. But in his assessment that Truss is better than Johnson, he's just not doing the work. His analysis of Johnson and Truss offers a stark reminder of the complexities and the demands of the prime ministerial role, and his work encourages readers and future leaders to reflect on the importance of not just having a plan, but also understanding the intricate dynamics of political leadership, listening to a diversity of voices and navigating the delicate balance between ideology and pragmatism. And Seldon's biographies, with their blend of critique and historical insight, are essential reading for anyone interested in British politics and leadership, whether you agree with him or not. He makes important points. He asks important questions about what makes a successful Prime Minister. And he implies that intention and seriousness, where necessary, or while necessary, are not sufficient. A Prime Minister must also possess the practical wisdom to navigate the complexities of governance. So Johnson is not serious, and Truss may have intention, but it's all over the place. A Prime Minister needs to have practical wisdom to navigate the complex realities of governance, a quality that both Truss and Johnson lacked in different ways. Johnson's flippancy and self-interest, combined with Truss's ideological tunnel vision, resulted in profound damage to the country over a series of years. So it's not just Truss's 49 days which were the problem, it's Truss and Johnson, and I would add Theresa May to that mix. Now, some people would want to add David Cameron as well. I wouldn't. I think David Cameron was a failure, but in the same way that other prime ministers have also been failures, like, for example, John Major, Gordon Brown. Johnson, Truss, and Theresa May are a trinity of disaster that I don't think Britain has seen probably ever. This was, let's say, a perfect storm, or some sort of triune goddess of chaos, because that's what it was. And what was the fundamental feature uniting those three